All right, my name is William Carter. I'm 52 years old. We are in Austin, Texas. Today is June 2nd, 2019, and I'm here with my sister, Caroline Lynn, with one N, Foley, born Carter, right? And all right, so what year were you born and where did you grow up?
I was born in 1965, March 3rd, and where did I grow up, you said?
Yeah.
In Southern California. I was born in Northridge and grew up in West Covina, Diamond Bar, Norwalk, I guess.
What are some early memories of your parents and siblings?
My earliest memories were us before Mom and Dad got divorced. In the apartment complex. We lived upstairs in an apartment complex. So those have to be my earliest memories as a child. I must have been like four years old, 4 or 5.
You remember that apartment, and that was with our birth father?
Yes.
Yeah. What do you remember? Anything specific or just?
I feel like I only remember like the things that went wrong or the catastrophes or things. And one of them was, we were all playing outside, and one of the boys that Tom was playing with dropped a rock and cut his finger off, and so that was real traumatic. And they asked
Tom, the boy.
The boy cut his finger off, and they asked Tom to go back and get the fingertip. So they're like, "Come on, Caroline, let's go find this fingertip." And it was like really bizarre. I kept like, "Why are we finding a fingertip?" And then of course I remember our birth father playing a prank on Mom.
Yeah.
It must have been April Fool's Day, and Mom was working late. I don't remember exactly what time she was coming home, but she was probably supposed to come home at like 7 o'clock at night or something. And our birth father thought it would be hilarious to leave the upstairs window open, which didn't have a screen, and we weren't allowed to open. And that when Mom came in, she could watch the curtains blowing out the window. And our dad had put a note on the door that Billy fell out the window and to call the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
And then he took us all to a gas station, and we sat there by the phone booth. With you used to be able to call the phone booth with that phone number that he had gotten, and she never called. And we had to wait. I think we waited for an hour, and then we came back. Like, maybe she's at the hospital already, maybe whatever, we don't know. And we came back and she was talking to the landlord the whole time. And Dad was so mad that his whole trick, backfired, or didn't backfire, just didn't work or whatever. But it's like, that's the craziest thing. Why would you do that to your wife? It's happy April Fools.
So Mom knew it was a joke?
No, she never knew. She didn't see.
Oh, she didn't see the note.
She was talking to somebody.
She was talking to somebody before she went upstairs to see the note.
Yeah, and then she saw us when we came around looking for her. So
I see.
The joke didn't really work out.
And so you remember that, or is it just from something you told?
Oh no, I remember being at the phone booth. I remember Mom standing there talking to the landlord. That was also the apartment complex that. I don't really remember. I think it was you. Pretty sure it was you. Was taking a bath, and you didn't turn the water off. And it overflowed, and it went downstairs. And the neighbors downstairs came up and knocked on the door and said, "There's a leak" or whatever. And then, we found you in the bathtub.
With the sailboats, duckies.
So I don't know why I have a few of those. Like they seem like catastrophes.
Huh.
I remember Dad used to come home and sleep, and he would sleep, and we wanted to play because I think he worked nights and wanted to sleep days or whatever it was, and he would let us draw on his feet. He would take ballpoint pens and draw on his feet, and to him that was fine. He could sleep while we were doing that. So I don't know why I have memories of that apartment complex.
That is so funny. And all right, so I've never heard some of those things. What are the names of your parents, and what year were they born?
Well, Pauline and Denny, she was born I guess she's gonna be 70, so or 72. I don't really know exactly what year.
43, I think. Yeah.
And
all right.
our birth father, I'm not sure exactly if he was born, I think in 40 or 41.
And that's Thomas Carson Carter. Period. Thomas Jr. And all right, and then and then there's also our stepdad,
Larry Denny.
Larry Denny. What do you remember about mom and dad's divorce and Larry, our stepdad, coming into the picture?
Again, I remember being at that apartment complex and Dad waking us up one morning and telling us that that Mom didn't want him to live with us anymore. And I believe I was 5 and Tom was probably 6.5 and you were like 3.5 or 4.
Yeah.
And Tom and I were crying. We were in the living room and Dad just said, first we're like, ha ha, you're funny. Like, no, I'm serious. I'm gonna leave, whatever. And we didn't believe him. And you were just walking back and forth, going, "Why are you guys crying? What's going on? Why are you guys crying?" And we said, "Are you serious or whatever?" And he said, "Yeah, go ask your mom." And we went in and asked Mom. She was in the bedroom, and she said, "Yes, it was true." We came out, and he was gone. So we're like, "Wait a minute, we didn't even say goodbye." So it seemed very devastating to me. Because, first I thought he was kidding, and then I verified he wasn't, and then he was gone.
Wow.
Had never seen him again until I was 18. So.
And where did you see him when you were 18?
In Alabama. When I went to college in Alabama, I think he was in the state of Alabama. Or a state very nearby or something.
Georgia, maybe?
I think so. I think he was living in Georgia.
Yeah.
And I was going to school in Alabama.
College. And so you sought him out when you went to college in Alabama?
Yes, I wrote letters. Aunt Emily told me that I could write letters to all of the Department of Motor Vehicles. And if they had someone matching that date of birth and that name, they would forward my letter on to him. And so I wrote to a couple of DMVs and they forwarded that letter to him.
And you went and visited him?
Yes.
What was that like?
It was weird. I didn't know him. I was 18. Hadn't seen him in 13 years. And it was strange because he was remarried and had a son that he'd named the same name as our brother Tom, which was pretty weird. But he still, treated me like a little princess, and took me to his factory and showed me where he worked, and took me to some of his friends' houses and had barbecues
And did you keep in touch with him after that?
We did for about, I'm not sure, maybe I wrote to him once or twice, and then he wrote me a letter, and it was a letter saying how angry he was at our birth father for taking his family. I was like, whoa.
Wait.
Excuse me, our stepfather, Larry, from taking his family away from him. I was like, whoa, where did this come from, And I remember writing him a letter back, and I said, I'm sorry if I said anything to make you believe that, that my upbringing wasn't a good one, and, and I feel like I have 2 fathers, not one, and I think this is a good thing, and, and he never responded, and I've never spoken to him again, so his letter it was a little crazy. It was a little, I think when he wrote it, obviously he was angry and upset, and it was just like, whoa, I don't need that in my life, So there was nothing that he was offering me, so it wasn't like I needed to keep contacting him or make him understand anything. I had my own life to deal with.
Right, and that was your last
contact with him.
All right, so do you ever remember getting in trouble when you were a child?
Sure.
Would you like to elaborate?
As a child, let's see. I'm sure I got in trouble plenty of times, but just remember things are. It depends on what you mean trouble. You know, I'm thinking, oh, I did this and mom told me that or whatever, disciplined me or whatever. But I remember, you know, the consequences weren't very tough because it was like I remember wanting to go on a camping trip with my friend Pam. We were both 16 and we were like, told my mom we're going to go with her mom. We told her mom we're going to go with my mom. And then, you know, we're all ready to go and packing everything up. And I don't remember, I think it was mom calling Beverly or whatever saying, so what time are you going to leave? And she's like, oh, I thought they were going with you. So we got busted and we couldn't go, but the consequences just that we couldn't go.
Yeah.
It wasn't, I didn't get beaten or anything.
Right. Would you say that you were a good child? Or,
yes.
Yeah.
Aim to please.
I see. What were some of the? Okay, let's see. Let's go with these questions. What was the relationship like with your mother growing up and your father?
Well, I didn't have one with my birth father, or I think before he left, I think it was a good relationship. I felt loved by my birth father.
Okay.
But with mom, she worked a lot, and it didn't feel real warm and fuzzy. But she always had this unwavering belief that I could do anything and be anything. And so my relationship was, she was just like my support, saying, you can do it. Yeah, go do that. You know, don't say, you know, don't talk like that because, you know, you should say it like this or whatever. So she was, you know, my guide and making sure I knew I could do anything and be anything. So,
yeah. What would you have liked to have said to your parents that you've never been able to? Any of them?
Any of my parents? That not been able to? Not really sure. I mean, I feel like I can tell mom whatever I want to tell her. And I don't really have something, I feel like I can speak my mind if I need to, so.
All right. Describe one of your happiest memories.
As a child or just in life?
Yeah, in life. Or both, or either.
Yeah. I don't know. Thinking about my childhood, I don't remember a lot of happy moments. I wasn't sad either, but I don't remember anything like, oh wow, I got a bike, or let's see. I liked going to school, and you know, happy moments where we're gonna do square dancing that day or whatever. But as an adult, I guess one of my happiest moments was having children. I wanted children so badly and struggled with that. So having a child and having Megan was like a dream come true.
Yeah. And what was your struggle with having children?
Being infertile. So I had clogged ovaries or fallopian tubes. I mean, a lot of scar tissue and such. So.
Huh. And so you adopted Megan, your oldest child. Yeah, what was that like?
It was, we were talking about adopting, and we went through a couple of agencies, and it was kind of a long process. And when people would say, hey, what have you been up to? We would say, oh, we're trying to adopt. So we would just talk about it a lot. And we found somebody, Jim ran into somebody who said, well, I know a girl who's pregnant, and her social worker is going to take the baby if it's a boy. And we're like, well, what if it's a girl? And we don't know. So we got her number and we contacted her, and she said, yeah, if it's a girl, we're not going to keep it. So,
Huh.
or she wasn't going to keep it because it wasn't her husband's, or Megan wasn't her husband's. So they were going to give it to her social worker if the baby turned out to be a boy. And when we called the day she was planning to have a cesarean, the hospital said it was a girl. So really, we heard this story like maybe in May sometime, and we were told that she was going to go into for a planned cesarean in like 2 weeks. And so 2 weeks later, we're like, hey, this is a long shot. Let's call the hospital and see if Michelle Parker had a girl. And Terry called the hospital for me and found out it was a girl. I remember being in this client's office and Terry called. I was like, what, that girl? Really? Okay, call you right back. And so we went to the hospital and we talked to Michelle, the mother, and we saw Megan, the baby. And we were like, oh my God, we might actually have this baby. This is crazy. This is like one day you say this to somebody and 2 weeks later there's this baby. And but then and she was in the hospital for 3 days because she had a cesarean. And on June 2nd or 3rd, she said, no, I've changed my mind. I can't give her away. So Jim and I cried and we said, oh, fuck it. We didn't want a kid anyway. And the next morning, Michelle called and said that she couldn't raise this child with just one parent loving her. She wanted to make sure there were 2 loving parents. So, so we got in the car and went and picked up a baby. It was the craziest thing.
So, and you went to pick up Megan, like how many days after how old was she?
4
4 days old.
So we went to the hospital and they were discharging Michelle, and she told me to bring some clothes. So I brought a little onesie and a car seat, and I nervously put her in this little onesie, and I said to the nurse, well, we're actually adopting this baby. And the nurse said, the baby gets wheeled out of this hospital with the mother. What you guys do outside of that is your business. So I handed Megan on her lap, and the nurse wheeled her to the front of the hospital. And Jim went to go get the Aerostar van. And Terry opened the sliding door, and I handed her Megan. And she put her in the car seat, and we slammed the door and peeled out of the parking lot.
Oh my God.
And all the way home, I had, oh my God, someone's coming after me.
Is she following us?
It's really crazy.
Oh my God, I've never heard that story. Wait, and so what did Michelle Parker, and so she just went home without a baby. Wow. All right, and so, and then so from then on, you just raised Megan, right?
Yeah, we stayed in contact with Michelle. And we let her know, how we were doing or how she was doing, and she wanted to see her, and we'd bring her over. And, but I think it was 5 months later, we had the court date saying that she's now ours. So with those 5 months, Michelle even had said once that she thinks she wanted her back, and I told her at the beginning that we would adopt Megan under one condition. But she cannot change her mind.
Yeah.
I could not fall in love with this baby and
Right.
have someone to take her back. So,
Right.
and
Wow.
so what I did, it was not legal, but she didn't know this, but I had Terry type up a document. I say, I, Michelle Parker, give all my rights away to whatever, and I made her sign it. I mean,
When did she sign it?
like when Megan was like 3 weeks old or whatever, I went and saw her, and, showed her the baby and gave her the document and asked her to sign it.
Huh.
So,
And so
even though it wasn't legal,
you guys knew it was not legal.
right?
Okay.
Because they told you have to have a court. It's not legal until the judge signs off on it or whatever. But it made her believe that this agreement is in writing.
I see.
I mean, it's not like I coerced her or anything. She wanted to do this, but I didn't want her to change her mind.
Yeah. And what year was that?
1992.
92. And then how soon after that were you pregnant with Mallory?
Well, Mallory was born in 95 with, it was not in vitro, it was just fertilization drugs. Let's see, what did I have? They were, I guess, shots that make me have more eggs from my ovaries. And then I had like 21 eggs. Usually you have 1 or 2 each month, but I had a lot of eggs, and then they inseminated me with Jim's sperm.
I
and
see.
I got pregnant with Mallory the very first time.
And was that the same with James?
No, with James, 3.5 years later, I did in vitro, and that's them taking the eggs, the same thing. I did the drugs, and they made me have more eggs, or follicles, or whatever they call them, and then they took them out, and then they fertilized them. I think that's the right word, fertilize them, and then they grow into a
Petri dish.
Yeah, it's in a petri dish, but it is it's now an embryo.
Huh.
So because basically they're watching to see if the cells divide, and so they had 3 healthy cells, or their cells dividing. So we had these 3 embryos, and they put them inside of me, and it didn't work. So, and then we did it again, and it didn't work. And then the 3rd time we did it, it worked.
And that was with James.
Yes, but I think I had 8, and they put 3 in the first time, it didn't work. They froze the other 5. They put the 5 in the second time, it didn't work. So with James, again, I think there was 8, and they put in 3, and James took, and then they froze 5 more. So 2.5 years later, every year they send you a bill for freezing your eggs, and I'm just like, really?
How much is that bill?
It was like $300 every 6 months.
Okay.
So like $50 a month for them to freeze your eggs.
Okay.
Or your embryos. And then so we just decided to try it again, and it didn't work. So the frozens, I tried it 4 times, it worked once. So.
And then then y'all were done. Were you done wanting to have kids, or were you just done with the process?
3 is enough, for sure. I knew that, and I also knew that I couldn't get pregnant without working hard at it.
I see.
So
I see.
that wasn't really.
Your hands were full at the time.
Yeah.
All right. So you've been married once, correct?
Yeah.
To whom?
Jim Foley.
Yeah. And what year was that?
We got married in, let's see, it must have been 1985.
Yeah.
I think, when I was 20.
Mm-hmm. Where were y'all married?
In Cancun, Mexico.
What was that like?
It was just, Jim's brother was going to get married to his fiance, and he asked us if we wanted to go along. And Jim's like, sure, we can even get married. So I never even got proposed to or anything. He was just like, oh, that sounds convenient, let's do that. So
wait, so Jim said that, or y'all just?
No, Jim said that.
And you heard him say that, and you responded how?
Yeah, we could go do that or whatever. It was just like a plan,
Okay.
like a vacation. It wasn't like, will you spend the rest of your life with me?
Right.
It wasn't like that.
I see. Okay, and so y'all got married.
We actually, on June 1st, we drove to Tulum. We rented a car and drove to Tulum, and with Bonnie and Steve and Jim and me, and Steve married us, in Steve's way. We sat on this boat, this vacated boat, and we sat up there, and we had pictures and everything, and Steve, this ring represents, in the circle of life, and these 2 rings and whatever, and we were all crying. We thought it was all so romantic. I'm sure we were all drinking beer, and then 4 days later, we actually went to the Justice of the Peace. And
in Mexico.
In Mexico, we got married. So on June 1st, we had the ceremony.
The fake ceremony.
Yeah.
In
and
Tulum?
then on June 3rd, in Tulum. Mexico.
Where's Tulum? Is close to Cancun, I assume?
That's like an hour away.
Oh, I see.
Or a half hour.
I think, Robin's engaged, our niece, and she wants to get married just outside of Cancun. I wonder if that's in a similar area.
Tulum, probably. Yeah, there's a lot of destination weddings in Mexico.
I see. Okay. All right. So let's see. Can you think of somebody not a family member that has had an influence on your life?
Jay, my boyfriend.
Yeah.
I guess he is a family member now.
Yeah.
Technically.
Yeah. What? And so, where did you meet him? When did you meet him? What's?
I met him on the last day of school, so I think it was on May 29th,
The
10
kids' school.
years ago.
The kids.
Montessori.
Uh-huh.
James's class was having a peace parade, and one of his classmates' dads, his name is Miguel, is Jay's cousin, and he saw me there, and he said, "Hey, why don't you come over with James after school?" And so I went to his ex-wife's house where his son lives, and
Miguel's ex-wife.
right,
Jay's cousin.
right.
Okay. All right.
So, and I guess I don't know if Jay just showed up there or he went and got him or something, but somehow that evening Jay showed up, and the boys and Miguel and his mom and Jay and I went to Whole Foods, and the next day he was having some sort of first communion, I think, or whatever, and they invited me to come back. So I didn't go to the church thing, but I had cake and coffee afterwards, and Jay was there again. And so.
And you all started dating, and when did you all move in together?
We didn't really start dating at first.
Oh.
When I first saw him those 2 days in a row, the next day he went to Mexico for like 2 weeks. And then when he came back, he contacted me, and we started dating, when the kids would go to their dad's, I would see him. We were living in the studio apartment at this time.
Yeah.
But he moved in with the kids and me when I rented a house. It was this 9-month rent on a house called Matterhorn.
And this is after you divorced Jim, or after you left Jim?
Well, I left Jim in 2008, and then I met in the summer of 2008, and I met Jay the summer of 2009.
I see.
And then he probably moved in with me probably the middle of 2010.
I see. How has your life been different than you imagined?
I probably thought I was going to have to work hard all my life. And when I was married to Jim, financially things were always stressful. So I just didn't realize that there was going to come a time in my life that I wasn't going to have to work so hard, and I wasn't going to have to worry about money. And so it's
like you're doing now, is that
yes,
right? Okay.
So now I'm very fortunate that I have my company and employees, and I train them to do all the work.
You wise woman. All right, so let's see. Can you describe an ideal day in your childhood?
My childhood. I guess it would be something like, being an adolescent and hanging out with my friend Tanya and, walking the neighborhood, or what would we do? Swimming over on Mount Street and road bikes. And so, those were happy memories, just hanging out with my friends.
Cheap and easy.
Yeah. There wasn't much to do, but...
All right. So an ideal day in your childhood. What about today? What would be an ideal day like today?
An ideal day would be one where I wouldn't have to set my alarm to get up and go to a job, and I would be able to wake up next to Jay and our dogs, and maybe go out and have tacos and breakfast and go for a walk or something, and probably even do some yard work at the house. That would be my ideal thing, is just to hang out at home and throw the ball with the dogs. And,
cheap and easy. I like it.
Pretty simple.
Right. All right, so a couple more questions. What are you most proud of?
Most proud of? Well, definitely proud of my children. I'm proud that I've raised them to this point, and now they're on their own to do what they want to do. And again, I think I'm proud of being a businesswoman that has worked hard enough to sow what I reaped, and now I get paid for not doing very much. So
Nice.
probably a big accomplishment.
How do you imagine the last 5 or 10 years of your life is going to be like?
How do I imagine it? Probably the way it is right now. I hope to continue to do my contributions to the job, which is the landscape consultations and help with some designs. So it keeps me active and enjoying it. I like shopping for plants, so I love to keep doing that into my 70s or 80s or whatever.
Nice.
And and again, I would like to not have to work so much and be able to go out for coffee and meals and just enjoy my home and
just like you're doing today.
Just like I'm doing today.
Nice.
And I hope someday when I get sick, or if I don't, hopefully I die by an accident, but if I get sick or something, I'll just keep living each day the best I can, and one day my life will be over.
Yeah.
I hope to go out continuing to believe that I've done the best that I can do, and I've loved the most that I can love, and hopefully I won't be kicking and screaming. I think I'll be peaceful and
Nice.
calm going out.
And so, where do you think you'll be in the last years of your life?
Probably in Austin, Texas.
In Austin. Where do you want to be buried?
I won't be buried. So, they do have those new plots. I think there's a Washington or one state is allowing bodies to be buried in a cocoons type
Like
of
a
thing.
seed pod, yeah, right, for a plant.
Those have been illegal, but they're starting to accept something like that. But even that is not that big of a deal to me, because I don't really care what happens to my body. I would want it to be the least expensive and the easiest thing to do. So I wouldn't want to make a big deal about some ceremony or some burying and some,
Funeral.
significant tree planted over me. I don't. I think that the memories of me are enough.
Yeah.
And so, burn my body and cremate me, and you can throw my ashes in the ground, plant a tree there if you want.
Right.
Whoever wants to, but
Is that what you would like?
sure, yeah.
Ashes or your body under a tree?
Yep.
Type of thing?
Yeah.
Nice. And so would you like there to be a funeral?
Funeral, a ceremony, that doesn't matter to me either. It's whatever my kids and if my loved ones want. That's up to them.
Nice. Okay, so one last question. What would you like your great, great, great grandchildren to know about you and your life?
So they probably won't know me, right? Great. No, probably not. Yeah, I'm starting a little late on that. Probably that I was a hard-working woman. Always tried to do my best and tried to love as deeply as I possibly could.
Nice. All right. Anything else you want to add?
I don't think so.
All right. Well done. Thank you very much.